Okay, so Salvete discipuli. Today's lecture is looking at the same lines, 1 to 56, however, just at the literary technique. So I've looked at the translation aspects of that, and this is just to go over the specific techniques as quickly as possible, identifying the techniques and the words they relate to, and what the techniques draw attention to. Now, sometimes it can be just any technique which draws attention to words. Sometimes the techniques have a little more to it creatively, but for the most part, as you'll see, it can just be any technique. So in line 1, we have an example of synecdoche. So faces, os oris in the plural, ora mouths representing faces. So this just, so what is happening is Aeneas in the Carthaginian court is about to relate his story on the fall of Troy to Dido and her people. And this just draws attention to the fact that he has their full attention and that what he's about to say is very important, and also of his importance as a guest to them as well. Aeneas has some epithets in the Aeneas. He's pious, he's dutiful to the gods, respectful, you could say, of fate, and follows the prophecies that he's given, and is a leader of his people. So it's not saying he's Ascanius' father, even though he is, but just more widely, he is a father figure. He is the leader of his people. So this also on the back of the technique on line 1 shows that he's an important person. After all, the Aeneid is named after him. You could say, so in just relating his story, obviously of the fall of Troy, he must allude to Greeks. Not a specific allusion, but just it is an allusion. And he mentions the Greeks. Obviously, they are orchestrated the fall of Troy, and that's all it is. Like, I think you need to know who are the villains or who are the perpetrators of this. So line 4, we have an example of the Greeks destroyed opes, power, et regnum, and the kingdom. So an example of hendiety. So when you say death and silence, which would sound better in English as deathly silence, but if you want to emphasize the deathliness of the silence. So you could just say destroyed Troy's powerful kingdom, but just to emphasize the extent of the destruction which led to them having to flee, you say both they lost their power and their kingdom. So just to scroll down on the English file here, a few things happening. Again, just more references to Greeks. Now, we've had a few references to Greeks and we still haven't seen the word Graiki. So all these words are just representing Greeks. So Myrmidons, Myrmidonum, followers of Achilles, famous Greek warrior, Dolopians, people of Thessaly, part of Greece, and people of Odysseus. So you could say that this is synecdoche as well, as in saying people of Odysseus, followers of Achilles, therefore Greek people, or people of a certain part of Greece, just to represent Greek people as a whole. So people who from different parts of Greece, or followers of different people. So that's alluding to that. You could say, yeah, as I said, you could say synecdoche as well. And yeah, just to emphasize the enemy again, and just how many were involved in the fall of Troy. Yes, a tricolon of Greek names too. Now in, give me a sec. So just got to scroll down one more. So you have unspeakable grief on this line. So infandum dolorem. You have sorrowful, lamentabile, very wretched, miserima, and then temperet a lacrimis. So just very long words, and it said in your notes that these are very sorrowful sound effects. So just the way the words sound. Now I'm yet to, okay, even though I haven't, I'm not going to talk about the scansion off the top of my head here, but I can almost guarantee that with these words, there would be quite a lot of spondies. That's just an educated guess. But just that's something it says in your Blue Book notes. So, besetting stars urge sleep. So an example of personification, so stars can't urge sleep, but just drawing attention to the fact that it's late, late at night, and that this is when he's telling the story. So even though it's late, and even though I don't want to talk about it, Aeneid says, I'll do it anyway. So personification, just drawing attention to the fact that it's late. There's alliteration. So S's times 4. So the line we are on is, yeah, so suadentque sidera somnos. And there's also, yeah, repetition of the dent sound as well. So suadentque cadentia. And in your Blue Book, it also says that the words get gradually shorter, which is reflective of drowsiness taking place. So you can imagine if you're drowsy and you're being kept up, you're not going to be saying long words. You're just going to be saying and speaking in with very short words. So see, praecipitat, 4 syllables, suadentque, 3 syllables, cadentia 4, sidera 3, somnos 2. So see how those last 3 words reduced by 1 in terms of syllables. So that's to note that drowsiness is taking place. Not a technique, but I just mentioned before how ardmore could be a precursor to, so it just means strong desire here to hear this story, but could also be foreshadowing Dido and Aeneas falling in love, in amore. So just a interesting choice of words there. Morning, an example of onomatopoeia. So for some reason, yeah, so just words which are conceptual forms of nouns. So say, for example, ones that are drawn from 4th principal parts of verbs. So fleo, flere, flewi, fletus means having wept, but can also mean weeping. So so fletus, fletus, that PPP turned into a 4th declension noun to be weeping. And that oo sound, often that sound has, can be onomatopoeia. So just a sound of mourning. And then incipiam on line 13 is enjambed. And so what that does is draws attention to what he's about to say, the significance of what he's about to say. So why are we Trojans here? Why am I here telling this story? Because of what I'm about to say, because Troy fell and it brought us to these shores. I've separated it, but it's the same line, but just because there's a subheading there. So we have alliteration of, you have fracti and fati. So I know it's only 2, but there's a note in the middle of your book which says that that repetition of F's in these 2 phrases, fracti bello, having been weakened or literally broken, demoralized by the war, and seemingly repelled by fate, The F's in both phrases denote what is said in the lectures as a double motivation of why, what has sort of brought the Trojans here, or what will bring the Trojans eventually to found a new Troy, as in Rome. So there's the human reasons, so they're just demoralized by the war, but there's also the reasons of fate running its course, and also just the gods upholding that. So there's just the human reasons and the divine reasons. So just that human agency and divine agency at work separately, but very much interrelated. Yes, and just to show that why the Greeks, the Dana Aurum or the Dana E, are resorting to trickery to end the war and finally win the war. It's because they have been laying siege for tot anis, for so many years slipping by, 10 years exactly. And now time or some just things happening, there's elsewhere where fate is said to be a scroll being unrolled. And so time here is slipping. So see how it just draws attention to how long the war had been going on, how unsuccessful they'd been in not being able to breach the walls, and could also say how just how desperate they were, what measures they were willing to take to end the war in their favor. Now, they build a horse the size of a mountain, so in star montis. So clearly this is hyperbole. It's not the size of a mountain, but it is bigger than a usual horse. So yeah, if we were to actually build the horse, like building an actual horse would be, oh goodness, I don't know how many meters high it would be, but I don't know, at least, yeah. So just enough to fit men in, and like you look at the depictions of it, and like, oh goodness, at least I don't even want to estimate, but 10, 15 meters, something like that. Yeah, so pretty big. But size of a mountain is exaggeration, but just to show that it's bigger than a normal horse, okay? You've got to fit people not on it, but in it. So, and then we have words. So yeah, so these metaphors in your blue book notes, it says aedificant, they build, and also intexunt, they enweave. So these are verbs which compare the building of this horse, big wooden horse, to shipbuilding. So, and as part of that, there is synchises in line 16 with these 4 words. So you have verb, they enweave its ribs, costas, with cut, sectar, fur, abiete, sorry. So that's a 5-foot dactyl. So here you see the 2 pairs of words are interlocked. And what that does, it's just like the ribs are enweaved with cut fur, you could say that the pairs of words are woven together. So it's nice. I like the creativity of that. And also it could just more widely draw attention to the actual aesthetic detail, but also you could say that the detail that the Greeks were willing to go to, the lengths they were willing to go to in terms of the detail involved in what the horse looked like, the extent of their trickery. So is what it could draw attention to. And all the things that the horse, the consequences of what the horse did. Okay, so going down a bit, there's not a couple for a few, not some for a few lines. Yeah, so line 20, I'll just scroll up a bit. we have lateri, literally latus lateris, so neuter noun meaning side. So side, obviously the men are not in the, well, they could be in the side. You could say inside, but it could say like the side of the horse, the wooden side of the horse, the panel. They're inside the, what's inside the sides. So they are inside. So just a simple example of synecdoche there. And an example of hendiades again. So they fill the hollows and the belly. So you could say the hollow belly. So just to, again, just another thing, just drawing attention to the horse and it as an engine of destruction and as a trick. So just, and part of that trick is the fact that it wasn't solid, the belly was hollow. And as as the Trojans would find out, full of men. So we also have a metaphor here, a rather ironic metaphor, and I'll come to the irony later, but use of the word uterum, so where we get the word uterus from, so uterum, so calling it a belly. So you can imagine that they are, so it's comparing, so the metaphor, it's comparing the horse to, say, a pregnant woman, and rather than giving birth to a baby, it's going to what's going to come out of it are the Greek soldiers. So by calling it a belly or a womb or something like that, it is a metaphor there. Okay, so here we are, 21, 2, 3, line 23. Carini, so the very common form of synecdoche. So carina, the word for a keel, carina, sorry, meaning a keel, representing a ship. And yeah, you could just say part of the trickery was them sailing away. So thinking that they had totally gone, whereas there were still men in the ships. So yeah, and ships are quite significant overall in the Aeneid, not only because the ships going away, but also the ships that are going to transport the Trojans to their new Troy eventually. They are not there yet. They are still, they've been blown off course, to Carthage. So keels representing ships is a very common form of synecdoche. Again, just like we said with Dolopum, Myrmidonum, Mycenae, part of Greece representing whole of Greece. So they've gone back to Greece as a whole. So just part of Greece representing Greece. 26. All of Troy loosened itself from its long mourning. So this line has, now this has alliteration of S's and L's. So omnis solvit se, longo solvit look to. So these are more softer sounds, and it reflects the I wouldn't say, yeah, just they feel that the war is over, but just looking back and just the tragedy of war. So, and also you could say Aeneas recalling this as well. So just these sounds are probably a little more significant than just anything, any normal example of alliteration. But then, for example, this one, I'm not sure if these P's have any real sound quality, but yeah, so to show that sort of, to show the kind of stopping point from the sadness to what they believe is happiness now that the Greeks are supposedly gone, portai Tanduntur. So the gates are opened. And you can imagine the gates are opened and they sort of start celebrating. And what draws attention to either side of the gates opening is the asyndeton here. So you can add an and. Sometimes asyndeton adds pace to a line by just getting rid of the space at space, which is very stop-start, and it just flows on. So I'd be interested to see how dactylic. Oh yeah, so actually there's increasing numbers of dactyls in line 26, 27. I'll put that in the Excel file. So 26 is more spondaic, but then there's a shift in the scansion where there's more dactyls in 26 and even more, I think there's 2 than 3 in lines 26 and 27. So that reflects the shift in the mood of the Trojans after opening the gates. And what also draws attention to this, what they believe is the Greeks being gone, and also just the trickery as a whole, is chiasmus in line 28, is it? Yes. So here we have adjective, deserted sites or places. So that's adjective noun. But then this one, the having been left behind or abandoned shore, is noun adjective. So the pairs are together, but chiasmus, the adjective, one is first, but the other one is second. So if chiasmus draws attention to anything, it's something got to do with routine or order. Usually the order in the Aeneid is fate running its course. So you could say that just the belief that the Greeks are gone, it is a fateful or ill-fated belief. Yes, so again, more just examples of part of Greece representing all of Greece. So just to, you could say just this drawing attention to the absence of any Greeks. Okay, so just this, this place which has been abandoned. It's conspicuously empty now after 10 years of fighting. And also drawing attention to just a particular Greek as well to represent the Greek. So in particular, like here, like in this very place that Achilles himself had been. And not only Achilles, but drawing attention to the Greeks or absence thereof. Yeah, so just cruel Achilles. And you can imagine them, so what also draws attention to this is another example of asyndeton. So just the missing and you've got the anaphora in terms of hic. So here. So you can imagine if someone were giving you a tour, they were saying, oh, here was where these people were and here where these people were. Oh, sorry, there's a tricolon of here's actually. So here and here and here. Okay, so just drawing attention to all those places that are being pointed to, which are showing where now no Greeks are. So they were here, but now they're gone. And we Trojans believe that this was a good sign, ill-fatedly. Sorry, not a tricolon, there's 4 here. So it's not a tricolon, that's why I didn't write tricolon, but just points to all 4 places. So asyndeton just says here, when you should say here. Actually, I should get rid of one of these. So here and here and here and here. No, I should have, if there's 4 of them, I should just have, there's a semicolon, but I can just make that like a comma. So here, and here. So just drawing attention to all 4 here's, to all 4 places where Greeks now are not. So yeah, so I'm not sure, I've never seen this, never seen Minerva commonly have an epithet, but that's why I put a question mark. So she's a maiden goddess. So unmarried is used to describe her. And yeah, just this could just draw attention just as an offering to her. She helped in its building as well. So yeah, could just draw attention And it's also alluding to her too and her role in its building. Just draw attention to the consequences of the horse existing. I've highlighted massive structure, the word molem, because of the word moles. So moles, which means bulk, mass, etc. So more widely in the Aeneid, so not a technique, but just you could say word choice. It's thematically just significant because of what's called the molus of Rome. So the cost of Rome. So it people, a lot of people paid the ultimate price for Rome to come into being. People such as Dido. And so I find this an interesting word choice because the massive structure of the horse, using the same word in the accusative, is also the same word used to describe the cost of founding the new Troy. So the horse is the starting point for it's the first domino which falls, which leads to a new Troy having to be founded. So whether or again, yeah, not a technique, but whether or. So again, shows his double motivation of human agency, so just the Trojans being tricked, but also that divine agency, or just the agency of fate. So just the double explanation as to why things happen. So the Trojans are tricked, but also because Troy is just fated to fall. So that's in line 34. Okay, not a few for quite a few lines here. Again, Laocoon, this is his 15 minutes. He's eager, so that, as I said, not a major figure throughout the Aeneid, but only like in this instance here. So that's why I've put epithet with a question mark. So yes, so just could say, yeah, just drawing attention to him as a important speaker in this passage. And I found the word ardent. So just to scroll down in the file here. So burning, passionate, like you have this as Aeneid themes, you have pietas and furor. So just pietas being dutiful, as opposed to furor, which can mean any sort of passion, not just anger, madness, fury, but say Laocoon is passionate about what he is saying, yeah, just could very generally tie into a lot of things with. So he's passionate about what he's saying, but yeah, it's a bit of a tricky one because he could say, it's hard to put into words, but just yes, ardens usually it's related to furor. So he's like he wants to protect Troy. It's like he's being dutiful to his people, but so it's a bit of a it's a bit oxymoronic, I think. It's a bit of a funny one. Okay. So we have a tricolon. So what he's saying, he doesn't trust the horse. So he asks the three questions. What such great madness? So what reason for this great madness, insania? For this frenzy over this object? Do you really believe that the enemy has sailed away? Obviously, the answer being in his head, no. Or do you think that any Greek's gifts are free from deceit? Again, obviously, no. So it's just a tricolon of rhetorical questions to draw attention to the fact that he was onto something. His opinion was eventually overridden. And just to you have to remember that Aeneas is recalling this story. So just so there's an element running through it of pathos, in that we were close to finding out that there were Greeks inside the horse and it was a trick, but we were absent-minded. Our minds were laiwa, as it says in this passage. And this is why we are here. Otherwise, we would still be, or Aeneas feels like, you know, Troy would still stand and we'd be still going about our normal lives and we wouldn't be in Carthage. So yes, again, what draws attention to Laocoon's plea is the alliteration of letter D. No real sound significance, I don't think. So dana, dona, dolis. So a couple of things which draw attention to what he is saying or what he's trying to convince the Trojans of. Do not trust the horse. Don't bring it into the city. It is a trick. You shouldn't trust the Greeks. They are generally untrustworthy, as is mentioned in the lectures. So he has the three questions, and then there's repetition of this. So enclose so he feels that there are Greeks inside the horse. It'd be interesting to know whether the Greeks inside the horse could hear him saying this. So enclosed by this wood, hoke and hike. So that's not anaphora. Anaphora is the same form of the same word. This is just repetition when it's different forms of the same word. So you just say repetition, not anaphora. So yeah, so just drawing attention to the details of what he believes, so that there are Greeks inside and that this is a trick. He believes it's a trick, and he was right. I've only highlighted don't trust the horse and I fear, beware of Greeks bearing gifts loosely, because that is just probably the most famous lines in the entire Aeneid. So in the Aeneid, there's with important speeches, usually long speeches as well. Laocoon's is quite short compared to some, but still, it's either a lot of speeches either start or finish with words like sic fatus, so having spoken like this. And when you see the very deliberate selection of the verb forfare fatus, the deponent verb to speak, and usually when you have fatus, we get the word fatum from that, because the word fate comes from fatum, which means a thing having been said. So a thing having been decreed that it's going to happen. So whenever you see fatus, just be wary of what was said and how particularly fateful it is. So it is fateful because what Laocoon said, because they didn't listen to him, it led to where they are now, and having to found a new Troy, which is central to the fate of Aeneas. So what did he do to try to prove his point? He contorts it, which is enjambed. He threw a spear. And just to remember, as I said, just to remember, not to forget that Aeneas is telling this story to the Carthaginian court, it just emphasizes how unavoidable this situation was, and just ratchets up the pathos in them, that, like, he's saying, we shouldn't be here, we should still be living the same lives, but because we were absent-minded, we didn't read the signs. This is why we're here now. This is why we lost our city in the end. So the throwing of the spear, this action which he took, that draws attention to the point he's trying to make. And then also what draws attention to this action and everything I've just described, into is mentioned twice, so anaphora there. Yeah, so what I was saying about womb before, so it says with the womb, this time it's utero, reverberating. So this metaphor is ironic because comparing it to comparing the belly of the horse to, say, the belly of a pregnant woman, So say a pregnant woman is going to produce a new living thing, a new life, whereas this womb, on the other hand, is going to bring death to the Trojans. Now, a lot of techniques here. So we have, where are we? So it gave out a groan. So wood makes a sound, but just giving it personal kind of qualities, as in it sounds as if it groaned. So again, Aeneas telling the story and Laocoon throwing the spear and showing that the wood is hollow, but the Trojans overlooked this, overlooked the fact that it was hollow and that it could have had men in there. So it gave a groan. Also sound effects. So there's the assonance, and also it's significant assonance because you've got insonuere I and then dedere kawanai. So two ere eyes. That reflects the echo or the shaking of the spear. So those repeated sounds. So you can imagine the spear just quivering as it hits the hollow wood. So ere I, ere I. So that repetition of movement, up, down, up, down. And yeah, you have kawai, kawanai. So that repetition of similar types of words, also reflecting the echoing of the sound. Oh yeah, same with the ere I, by the way. Not only the movement of the spear, but the echoing the sound more so. Yeah, so just the alliteration and assonance of ere I and cow. So C's and B's. So lots of things drawing attention to the point Laocoon made, which was overlooked. So just to finish off here, yeah. So again, more double motivation. So all the double motivation things are references. They're juxtaposing gods and people. So just that divine agency related to, separate to, but very much related to, and moving in the same direction as moving in the same direction, but just very much related to human actions. So here we say, so Aeneas is saying, why are we here? How did we end up here? Because our minds have not been ill-omened, because our absent-minded, and also because fate brought us here as well. So human agency and also divine agency has brought us to these shores and led to our foolish the destruction of our city, or what we feel we should have seen, but for a lot of reasons, we overlooked it. And just in telling this story, he ends with, on a very literally pathetic note. So he says, if only we'd done this, like if only we'd listened to Laocoon and fouled or disfigured the Greek hiding places, so the belly of the horse, with iron. So the metonymy drawing attention to what they should have done but didn't. And then he finishes off by with an example of apostrophe, so addressing the high stronghold of Troy. So not only the stronghold of Troy, but Troy as a whole. But so an example of Synecdoche, Pergama, the citadel of Troy, representing Troy as a whole. He addresses it directly as a you. So speaking to the city which he loved, the city in which he lived, his old fatherland, which is now destroyed. So when he's saying, and the use of the subjunctive as well, mane res, it might remain had we not been absent-minded, had fate not been sort of against us as well. So Apostrophe is very closely linked to pathos. So yeah, so that's a deep dive into all the techniques in the first 56 lines, which is about a third of the first half of the set lines.